Cult Cinema Podcast.
Ash, it's not gonna let us leave.
You bastards! Why are you torturing me like this?
Perfect. All right. Welcome, cult followers, to episode 12 of the Cult Cinema Podcast. I'm Gage.
I'm Ashley.
And today we're talking about The Evil Dead.
The original Evil Dead. I'm
Evil
so
Dead,
excited.
1983.
Yeah, I am beyond stoked to talk about this movie. I love it. It's one of my favorites.
I can't say that I thought it was a good movie.
It's not good, but...
I definitely enjoyed watching it for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those movies where like I would watch it with my friends so that we could make fun of it, not so much because I enjoyed the viewing experience so much. But
fair enough. It's not great.
Yeah. All right, so because I was like, I knew that Sam Raimi directed it because when I looked it up, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I like halfway through the movie, I completely forgot that this is the same guy that directed Spider-Man. And I was
right.
And so that's
one of the Spider-Mans.
Yeah. So yeah, it was interesting. But I mean, it's his first like real like feature-length movie that people know about. I mean, he was doing like shorts and stuff, but this is like,
yeah,
you know, he dropped out of college to go make this movie with his buddies. So
yeah,
and this is what we got.
This is what we got.
Yeah.
It's not great,
right?
But...
I mean, granted, I don't know if I would be able to make a better movie for $350,000. So
I mean,
I don't know.
Like you said, he directed a Spider-Man. I didn't know him from anything other than horror. So,
okay.
And I love the Evil Dead series. I love the Evil Dead show that's on Starz. It's hilarious. Check it out. It's so fun. And then, of course, Drag Me to Hell. There's, he's a great director. He just had literally no money.
Yeah. But yeah, so, all right. Well, ready when you are to get started with the scene by scene and go from there.
Okay, so, yes, this original Evil Dead, it was rated NC-17, which is, we'll get to it when we get there, but I forgot why, and then I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
So, yes, like we said, directed by none other than Sam Raimi, and starring the badass himself, Bruce Campbell. This film actually won an award from the Academy of Science Fiction and Horror Films, so that's pretty cool, even though it was terrible.
Yeah.
It's no, Oscar, obviously, but
Right.
Still an award.
Yeah.
So we open the movie, the camera rushing through the forest, and this is very synonymous with this franchise, the Shaky Cam, which we'll talk about it a little more in fun facts, but it's called the Shaky Cam. And we see 5 people in a car coming down the road, and they're all singing. So it's Ash and his friends. Ash is played by Bruce Campbell. I'll list the other names as we get there. And he's reading the map. But then we also see a truck flying down the road as well. And then all of a sudden, the car steering wheel turns on its own to veer into the truck. And, it didn't do it. The guy driving, who is Scotty, didn't do it. So we already kind of see that the woods is not a safe place.
Yeah, because during this, we're still getting some POV shots from the woods, kind of looking out onto the road and everything.
Exactly.
To show
You're
that
getting
there's something out there. Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting over the car. You're getting, over the red vehicle that's coming at them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're getting all of that as well. They nearly miss the truck though. And they turn off onto the road that's going to lead them to the cabin. That's what they're looking for on the map. They're all going to a cabin for the weekend. It's at this moment that everyone learns the guy renting it says it was in decent shape, but no one's been there in years. So for all they know, it could be a piece of shit. And the girls all look at each other like, oh, crap. What did I get into? They cross a busted-ass bridge and almost get stuck on it. One of the tires actually breaks through one of the beams. But that shot itself, it's like, how did they even get out of that? Because it totally broke. So, but honestly, it looks like they just shouldn't have gone on that bridge at all, obviously. They finally pull up to the cabin, and the porch swing is just rocking back and forth on its own. And as Scotty walks up to the house to get the key that is stashed above the door frame, the swing just stops all of a sudden on its own. They look around, but obviously they're like, whatever, going inside. So Scott goes in and starts looking around as all the other people start unpacking the car. We immediately cut to nightfall, and Cheryl is in a room by herself, and she's drawing some kind of clock, or initially it's a clock, and then it stops and dings at some weird time, and then the wind cuts through the open window next to her, and her hand starts to just scratch on the page and draw.
Yeah. She draws a demonic SpongeBob looking thing.
Right.
I couldn't help but think of
Sure.
that. And like they don't address like the drawings like at all for the rest of the movie. And like this is basically the end of the first act already.
Right. This movie does not have a pacing issue. It starts off running and never stops.
Yeah.
They're all like that, though. 2, 3, and even this series is kind of like that. There's no lag pretty much anywhere.
This is the only one I've seen so far. I haven't seen anything out of the Evil Dead franchise. But from my understanding is that this is the first one that's a little bit more serious, and the other ones dabble a lot more into comedy.
Very much so. Especially Army of Darkness, the third one, straight up comedy horror. There's gore, but it's more funny than it is scary.
Yeah.
You should watch Army of Darkness for sure.
Now that I've seen this one, I really want to see the second one. So maybe that'll be what I watch tonight. So we'll see.
We'll also kind of get into that in the fun fact stuff too. Mm-hmm. Don't waste your time on the second one.
No?
No. We'll talk about it when we get there,
Okay.
but definitely Army of Darkness.
All right.
It's a winner. So anyway, crazy hand going nuts. And obviously she can't control what she's doing, but all of a sudden, as soon as it happened, it stopped. So I guess everything's fine. And again, like you said, demonic SpongeBob SquarePants is what she...
I mean, she draws like a rectangle with like a face on it too. Like I can't...
Right. Well, she is drawing the actual book that will come across here in a few minutes. But it's not great, obviously, because she's trying to fight whatever's happening, but, either way. So we then cut to all of them eating dinner, and she literally doesn't say a word about this weird-ass thing that happened to her. So weird. And we kind of pan out from the table, and we see this hatch fly open on its own in the middle of, like, their living room. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they all get up to go investigate. Ash was like, what the fuck is this? And Cheryl's like, let's close it. I don't feel good about this. Hell yeah, girl, close it. Should have listened to Cheryl. Then the other two girls, who are Linda and Shelley, say, well, it might have been an animal. So Scott trops on down there with his flashlight to see what's going on. Ash yells down to see if he sees anything, but no response from Scotty. So then Ash then heads down into it's a cellar, essentially, is what it is. And we kind of pan around, and it's pretty dark in there. Kind of unremarkable looking for a cellar, but it also looks very small. So it almost looks like he shouldn't even be able to stand up in there, but he is. No sign of Scotty, though. And we then kind of flip to some pipes that straight look like they're falling apart and leaking all over the place. Like, how is this not forming a huge mess in this cellar portion? A door in front of Ash then kind of moves. And you think, well, maybe it's Scott. And as he opens it and walks in, Scott jumps out and scares him. There are tons of crap down there, though, in this cellar. And a gun, all kinds of stuff, bullets, pictures, weird drawings and writings. And then, of course, we stumble upon the infamous Necronomicon, or Book of the Dead, which is referred to in this movie. It's not called the Necronomicon until the second movie.
Yeah. Well, I believe that the working title for this film was actually the Book of the Dead, or Book of the Dead.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Because if you look at all the behind the scenes stuff, everything that's on the slate it says Book of the Dead or BOTD on it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, I don't remember exactly when they came up with the actual title, but I want to say it has something to do with some sort of rights. They couldn't actually call it that.
Probably.
Something else was called that, or
Well, there was a whole lot of legal things that happened because of this movie with Sam Raimi, which we'll get into later, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's also some sort of like totem with a skull and stuff on it. Again, just all really creepy stuff. But there's also a giant recorder down there. So they grab all that and take it upstairs. Everyone's now sitting around the fireplace, and Ash begins playing the tape recording that they found. It's a professor, and he's explaining that he found this book, the Book of the Dead, and basically if you read the book, you bring demons back to life. The girls kind of get creeped out and want to turn it off, so he does. But then Scott's like, no, keep playing it. And I'm like, no, turn it off. Turn it off, Scott. The voice on the tape then starts reading from the book, clearly, because it's a different language. And again, we see Shaky Cam flying through trees and then through the window as Cheryl's basically yelling to stop because she's getting the most freaked out at the moment. So they eventually turn it off because it's scaring the ladies. Cheryl goes running to her room alone, and she's pretty upset at this moment. But whatever, she's by herself. We then see Ash and his girlfriend Linda on the couch, and he gives her a small little present. It's cute. She opens it as she smiles and says thank you, and it's a small little necklace. It looks like a microscope.
Or magnifying glass.
Magnifying glass, thank you. Yes, that's important in some of the other films too. But it's cute, and she thanks him and loves it and won't take it off, blah, blah, blah. We then see someone or something on the outside of the cabin looking through Cheryl's windows and their window. Like, we start with Ash and his girlfriend, then it goes to Cheryl. So, again, just looking through the windows. We pan over and then see Cheryl alone, and we hear, join us, as you see her in her room. And then this idiot goes outside.
Yeah.
For some reason. By all means, you're in a cabin in the middle of nowhere alone. You hear join us, and you go looking outside. Makes sense.
Yeah. It's the classic, when you're watching it, you're just like, oh, no, don't do that. But it's the classic bad decisions made by people in horror films.
Terribly, terribly bad decision. Because as she goes wandering off into the woods, although it is silent as hell, there is no sound as she's outside, no wind, no nothing. She starts yelling like someone's out there. We then hear some back and forth crackling, maybe wood, and then the camera goes right up on her. And then we see fog, a bunch of branches and vines start wrapping around her, like pulling on her, ripping on her clothes. And it's cutting her at the same time. So she's getting little cuts from all the branches. Mm-hmm. Then the vines start pulling her arms and legs apart. And then, like I said, now I remember why it's NC-17.
Yeah.
Because there's straight up tree rape.
Yeah. It's definitely the most disturbing scene in the entire film. And it's very much just like, there's no need for this to be here.
There really isn't.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was kept in.
Even Sam Raimi, when he was, going through all the drama after this movie was made, he was like, yeah, you know what? I don't think it was super necessary to have this scene.
Yeah, it's really not.
Yeah. But apparently that last bit where, that one branch comes out of nowhere and penetrates was apparently added in post. And the actor who plays Cheryl had no idea that was going to be in it, so she watched it and was just like, oh, okay.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wouldn't tell her either.
Yeah.
Like, if it is added in post. So not only this didn't happen to her, so she's not reacting in that way, but you do it in post. So you're watching this scene, you're like, you know what this needs?
Yeah, it just needs a little bit more.
Little more. I need a branch going in a woman.
Yeah.
I think that will make this film.
It's rough to watch.
It is, very much so. So she eventually gets untangled, though, and starts running away, but whatever, it is chasing her into the woods. She, I think, does more of like a circle and then finally makes it back to the cabin. The door is locked, though, and she's banging on it, but nobody hears her. She finally sees the keys on the top of the door frame originally.
Why are they left there? Like,
Especially when you went inside.
Right. I mean, this film has a number of continuity issues, and they like cast and crew have addressed this and how like this movie was supposed to take 6 weeks to shoot and easily was like double. Like it was easily like a 12-week shoot, where a lot of the actors, had to leave partway through filming because like they were done.
Yeah.
They had other projects to do. So it was pretty much just like the last end of the movie. That's just because it's, just Raimi, a handful of people, and Bruce Campbell just shooting the rest of the movie. And
yeah,
there are bits where I think you can tell that there are like stand-ins or someone else in the makeup because like the hair looks a lot different. I think it's like when Linda or something becomes one of the creatures, like the hair is completely different later on. So
that could be. I have some stuff about that too, and I'll mention it now. I know Scott in the whole last like 15-20 minutes roughly is another person,
and because the hair is shorter. That was the first thing I noticed, was that
it's a different color too. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean they just went way too long for sure. So again, getting the keys, but before she can get inside, she drops them. Shocker. But Ash eventually opens the door. He's like, "What the fuck happened to you?" She's like, "It's in the woods. It's the woods. The woods got me." And obviously she sounds fucking bonkers.
Yeah.
But we then see Ash, and he's her brother. So she's freaking out and wants to leave. And he's like, "Well, as your brother, I guess I have to take you." So they get to the car because she was like, "I'm out. I got to get out of here." So they get to the car, but it's not turning over. And Cheryl's like, "I know it's not going to start. They're not going to let us leave." But luckily it kicks on. Everyone else stays behind at the cabin, and we see Ash and Cheryl stop all of a sudden in the road. And he says, "Hold on, I see something," and gets out of the car and goes wandering off. And I'm like, again, why would you do that? This is a terrible idea. We then hear like a siren sound or a moaning, and Cheryl then gets out of the car too. But Ash pops up out of nowhere, and she just starts freaking out again and screaming and keeps insisting that she wants to leave.
Well, I know that, there was, like, so when they drive away and they get out of the car because they hear, something, like, Ash gets out of the car, tells Cheryl to leave, or to stay, while he goes and investigates. And...
Right, but...
Yes.
Go ahead,
There's
sorry.
the part, like, after a minute, she decides to get out of the car to go find him. And literally after, like, 3 seconds have gone by, she is, like, 100 yards away from that car. If you if you look at, like, the distance between her and how far back the car is... Just and you didn't see her leave the door. Yeah.
And the door is closed.
Yeah.
And you didn't see her do that. So yeah, it's again just weird weird cuts, obviously. Yeah. That's how they were.
I've noticed a couple issues in the sound mixing too in this film, where I think it's in particular in the very beginning where Scott is going around and like investigating and he's like in the shack or something, and like the audio just like completely cuts out during like one part. And I don't know if that's like maybe some technical issue when I was watching the movie, but like
no, because again the silent mention of Cheryl when she exits the cabin to go into the woods, I don't even hear her walking. So I think you're right. I think they just are like, oops, that's how it is.
Yeah.
They don't go anywhere. They go back to the cabin. So we cut back there, and Ash starts listening to the recording again. And the other two girls, Linda and Shelley, are playing some sort of card guessing game. So Linda's holding up the cards. Shelley's guessing, whatever. She's getting them all wrong. But then all of a sudden, Cheryl starts guessing them all right. And we flip to her, and
she's just looking out the window.
She's looking out the window, but then as soon as she starts yelling all the cards as they're coming up, we cut to her, and she's a zombie, demon, dead thing.
She's an evil dead.
Yes, she's an evil dead. So I'll mention it now, but I'll talk about it later. They have a name for them, and they're called Deadites. It is particular to this franchise, and it is a mix of a demon and a zombie, but it is a demon from hell.
Okay.
With the skin, the white eyes, and this is the first time in horror. You had some of zombie films out at this point. You had some demonic type films out at this point. This is the first film where you have a demon who can flip back and forth. Mm-hmm. So it can be a person 1 second, normal person, and a demon the other second. Just something to note.
And to talk a little bit about like the makeup and everything that was used for these creatures is, well, first they had these like hard contact lenses that they had to wear, which you cannot
glass.
Yeah,
glass, right?
I think so, but like you can't see. They couldn't see through them, like when you were wearing them, because like nowadays they have like the soft ones that just go basically around the iris. This one these covered the entire eyeball, like the front of the eyeball, and so with that,
and you can tell.
Yeah, and they just talked about how they like could not see a thing out of these, and the artist on set, I can't remember his name, but for a lot of the face paint he used, they would put like Vaseline on their face and then do acrylic paint, which you are not supposed to use on skin, because you basically just have to like violently scrape it off to get it off your skin. Yeah.
God, yuck. That would be terrible. Plus, wouldn't it kind of burn? I think acrylic burns. Yeah. Ooh, terrible.
Yeah.
I did read the thing about the contacts, and they were glass, I think, which are extremely uncomfortable in itself.
I that's why I usually wear glasses. Like I don't right now. I'm just not wearing anything. But like I can't stand the idea of having contacts or having something sit on my eyeball.
Me neither. I wear glasses too.
I can't do it.
No, I don't even like touching my eye. Let alone
I can barely do eye drops. That's how much I don't like things touching my. I'm one of those people that has to go in like the crease and just kind of let it do its thing.
Ditto. Yeah. I don't like it. Eye stuff and teeth stuff for me is gross. So she passes out though almost immediately after screaming her demon head off. And just as Ash goes to check on her, she pops up and stabs Linda right in the goddamn ankle
with a pencil.
With a pencil.
John Wick zombie over here.
So gross. Oh my god, I had the same note about John Wick. I'm not even kidding.
But yeah, it's the most one of the most realistic like prosthetics I've seen, because it's just a fake leg that they're stabbing into, but it looks real, and you could like feel it when you see the pencil go into the leg, and it just
it's very uncomfortable to watch.
There's like there's a lot about this movie that doesn't hold up. Basically, the writing, some of the cinematography, most of the movie does not hold up, but like some of the practical effects in this, I think, are like for that the pencil scene, for example, does.
They're pretty good. Yeah. And it's one of those scenes in horror where when it happens to you, you're like, ooh, and you feel it like in the ankle part. So Scotty basically kicks her down into the cellar door and then chains it closed. So was the cellar chained before, but when it popped up, we don't know. But now there's chains, and he chains it up.
I think there were chains on it before, but it just wasn't locked previously.
Could have been. Well, now it's locked, and Cheryl's down in there. Her makeup just keeps getting even more like demon-like too throughout this whole series of events, but still not great. We then cut to Ash checking on Linda because, pencil to the ankle. He gets her all bandaged up, but that could straight bleed out and kill her in itself because I'm sure she hit the tendon.
Ugh. Just thinking about it makes me cringe. Ugh.
It's uncomfortable, but you could die. Just note to self.
Thank you for
that. We then see Scott and Shelley and Ash kind of in the main room. And we're looking at a POV from Cheryl at this point. So we're looking at them through like the
cellar
crack in the through the cellar. And Shelley's like, yo, we got to get the fuck out of here now. I'm not waiting until morning. We got to go. Leave her in there, basically, is what she says. We got to all get out of here. And then Cheryl's just laughing from the cellar in that very creepy, cackly way. And we cut back to outside with the camera of Shaky Cam going towards the cabin again. And we see it looking in the windows again at everyone. Shelley now thinks she sees something out the window, and it busts right open inside, and she screams her head off. And Scott and Ash hear her and go looking for her, but she's gone. So
and they're like so casual about it too. Like it's Shelley, right? The one that's I think
this is the one that is taken. Shelley got taken.
Yeah, and I'm pretty
sure Cheryl's on the bed.
Yeah, Shelley is Cheryl is in the cellar. Cheryl is Ash's sister.
Yes, sorry.
Shelly
Yes.
is the other brunette that I think is Scott's girlfriend.
Yes.
And
Linda is Ash's.
Yes. But when, they bust through the window and they hear that, Scott and Ash are not like, holy shit, she's in trouble, we need to go help her. They're like, I don't know if I want to go in there.
No,
and
they hesitate.
Scott and Shelly's whole relationship is like, Scott does not give a shit about like all the bad stuff that happens to Shelly. It's not like how Ash feels at all when shit starts happening to Linda, where like you see him like affected truly and emotionally. But like Scott's character, he's just like, fuck it, I don't know if I don't know.
Yeah, he didn't care.
Yeah.
He literally doesn't care. He's like, I gotta leave too, and fuck her, fuck you, fuck everybody.
Yeah.
I'm gone. For sure. They kind of do that thing like they used to do in Scooby-Doo, where they like look at each other, and then they're like, okay, now we gotta take off and see what's happening. They don't see her, but Scott hears something behind what looks like a closet door and opens it, but there's nothing there. Then we see another door, and then I'm like, dude, how many fucking doors are in this tiny ass cabin? There's so many.
They had to redo the entire inside of that cabin too, because
I believe it.
Because it was just basically when they got there, it was just like torn to shit. There was cow shit everywhere, and so they had to go in and just like scoop it out and like basically redo the entire inside of the entire cabin. And
I believe it. But this door led to the bathroom, so fine. That door needs to exist. So Scott goes inside, and then, bam, we see Shelly. And she's now a Deadite as well, and she tries to kill him. He knocks her right out, though, and he hits her into the fireplace, kind of, and it burns her face a little bit. But he immediately tries to pull her out, and I'm like, but you just hit her over there.
Yeah.
So why are you helping her? But whatever. She jumps right back up on him and starts to strangle him. She then sees the creepy skull knife thing from the cellar. So it's actually a knife, but then it has like almost a whole skeleton on it, like a mini skeleton.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the handle. So tries to stab him with that, and as soon as he gets it, he almost turns it around away from her, and she starts eating her whole goddamn hand off, holding the knife.
Yeah, because she is trying to stab him with something, and then he grabs that and then slices her hand, and then she just like, fuck it, hand's going off.
Eats the whole thing off. That one also was pretty graphic. Yeah. Scott then stabs her in the back with it, and Ash is literally just standing there the whole time doing absolutely nothing, holding an axe like he can't believe what he's seeing, clearly in shock. She then falls onto the ground, and a bunch of white goop starts spitting out of her hand and everywhere. And all the while this is going on, Cheryl from the cellar is screaming and laughing and banging the door because she loves it, obviously, loves what's happening.
Meanwhile, Linda's just sleeping in the back room.
Right. Linda is traumatized to the point where she can't even deal with it. She's fainted and she's out. Yep. Shelly then pops up again, all demony, tries to kill Scott again, and Scott finally takes the axe out of Ash's hands, literally standing there, and basically chops all her limbs off. Mm-hmm. So, that worked, I guess.
Because I guess this was like the first thing where you see like zombie-like demons in cinema. They talk about like this was the first one where they were like, okay, you gotta like cut them up. Like you can't not just like hit to the head,
not just the head,
decapitate. It's just like you gotta cut these fuckers to pieces.
Yep. And he does. He cuts her to pieces. Mm-hmm. And then Ash is like, well, what are we going to do with her? And Scott's like, well, bury her, duh.
Scott's like, no emotional like response whatsoever. Not the fact he literally just chopped his zombie girlfriend to bits. He's like, let's bury her. Yep.
Wash my hands of that.
See ya.
Because that's exactly what he says next. He's like, we're out of here. Yeah. We got to go. Leave her body.
Leave Linda behind. We got to get out of here.
Yep. Leave your sister in the cellar. Yep. Leave your girlfriend. We're out. But also, how do you explain that? Mm-hmm. If you really did leave and it's just the two of you now.
Scott magically got a haircut too. In the middle
of the movie.
Because I think it's really noticeable in like when he goes to investigate the bathroom and then turns around, because he's like real like shaggy, kind of like hair, at least the back, kind of mullety down to his shoulders, and then it cuts as he turns around and it's just like clean shaven across the side. He's like, okay.
Well, and he's parted it in a different way. Yeah.
He must have styled his hair while he was in the bathroom, while he was in there for a bit, and then
I guess.
Yeah. But
so again, Scott's like, yeah, we got to get the fuck out of here. We got to go. Cheryl then starts laughing again from the cellar, and this part is still really creepy to me watching it even now. And the way she's laughing, the way she looks, I don't know, it's just very visceral and like creepy to me.
Yeah.
But at that moment, Ash goes to check on Linda, and he wants to look at her ankle, and you kind of see this effect was kind of cool too. It's almost like a spider web is dissipating from her.
So it's basically
ankle.
Use of stop motion as they're like drawing, outwards along the veins to make it look like it's casually like spreading, whatever kind of infection is spreading.
Which I thought was pretty dope looking still.
There's a lot of really neat uses of stop motion in this film for like either like seeing decaying or transformations. It's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Ash takes off out the door, and Scott comes out of nowhere, and he looks fucked up, like he got hurt.
Like he got raped by a tree.
Or something. Maybe he did too, and they were like, nope, let's cut Scott.
We showed it once. I think we got it. Let's just move on. We know what happens.
No sodomy.
Yeah.
That's where we stop. That's where we draw the line here. Unbelievable. But he looks fucked up. And then Linda, all of a sudden, we turn around and see her. She's sitting in the doorway, and now she's a demon thing. But at this moment, she kind of looks like a fucked up doll with no eyes. And she's just laughing and being creepy.
She's got the whole like childlike innocence type thing going, and it's creepy as shit.
Yeah, it's very creepy. The Linda scenes also still creep me out. Scott just says he won't let us leave, and we're all gonna die here. Which, touche, you're probably right. Cheryl then mocks Scott from the cellar, and Scott looks like he's turning into a demon thing too himself. Like he's clearly turning colors at this point. Then Linda and Cheryl all laugh, and Scott, it looks like he bleeds out, kind of. And then Ash goes and smacks Linda a bunch in the face. Yeah. I thought it was funny because she's laughing the whole time.
Hand.
It's funny, and she laughs the whole time. Then all of a sudden we hear Scott say, kill her, and he's not dead. Ash gets a shotgun, and he just can't pull the trigger because he does love Linda. We then see Linda turn back to normal, and she's asking for help. And again, this is where we mention the whole you can go back and forth pretty much in this franchise from demon to person. We then hear Cheryl from the cellar saying to let her out. She's fine now because, again, her voice is now back to normal as well. So Ash takes the keys out of his pocket, and at first looks like he's going to help her and let her out too. He sticks his head down to the crack and her hand flies up and tries to strangle him. So nope, she's still a demon. Linda is now a demon again and starts singing a creepy ass song that is still super creepy. So he drags her outside. just out of
down
the situation.
Just down the steps and just out into the woods. She's like, nope, and then just goes back inside.
Yep, just yeets her out in the forest.
Yeah. Like, not to kill her or anything. Literally, it's just like he's like, he does it out of annoyance rather than anything. It seems like he just straight up just pulls her legs, just drags her outside.
Too much going on. But Scott's not dead yet, and Ash tries to give him some water and says the sun will be up soon, and then we can all leave because they can see where they're going. Oh, but wait, Scott is dead. It's very back and forth where you're like, is he dead? No. Okay, now he's dead. Cheryl laughs again, seeing that he's dead as well. Linda then pops out of nowhere and stabs Ash with the creepy skull knife and licks the blood off of it. They kind of fight back and forth a bit. Cheryl grabs his legs as he gets closer to the cellar, but Ash finally knocks Linda down on top of the knife. She also spits out a bunch of white goop. And is question mark dead? He drags her body away. He initially goes to this like shed, and he's gonna chain her up, and he's going to take a, chainsaw to her. But then he sees the necklace that he gave her, and he just can't do that either. So he takes her back outside and goes to bury her body as well. She also goes from covered in blood, like you see the initial body bag that he wrapped her in is soaked in blood, and now when he's burying her, there's like no blood.
Yeah. This happens again too because they get into the whole skirmish that follows, and he ends up killing her, and in the process he gets absolutely soaked in her blood. Right. And then as the next like couple shots as he walks away, he's like perfectly clean.
Yep. Oops, costume change.
I was like, how could you let this be in? Like some of the continuity is like, okay, I get it, it's an indie film. They're like very pressed. There's a lot of amateurs on set, but it's just like there's that, and like even in the beginning, there were some shots that were just straight up completely out of focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was in the scene where like Ash and Linda are having their heart to heart. There's like there's a shot where this shot is just completely out of focus.
A couple of the shots too when the shaky cam comes up to the window, which I guess you would expect based on how it's a fun fact I'll describe later. I could see how that could be out of focus, but yeah, you're right. There's definitely some times where you're like, they missed that too.
Yeah.
So as he's digging her grave, we see Cheryl like knocking on the cellar door up and down. And we get a quick shot of Linda's eyes. They're kind of demon-like again. But Ash looks over at her, back to normal, and they're closed. So that kind of goes back and forth a few times. But he finally puts her in the hole and covers her up. But oops, she pops up and starts digging at his leg. And that kind of is gross, too. Again, very graphic with the shredding of his skin. He then grabs a beam or something. It looks like a 2x4.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a giant block of wood, essentially. But it's I think I remember because there's a whole a mini documentary on the behind the scenes of this movie, and it's basically I think just a giant styrofoam block that just is meant to be put up in home decor to look like pieces of wood, and that's what it was. But they were talking about how like when he's beating Linda with it, like she was just like it actually hurt a little bit, and they're just like constantly beating her and hitting her in the face with this giant piece of like styrofoam.
Oh no, how many takes?
Yeah.
That sucks. But he does hit her a lot, for sure. But as he's hitting her over and over, she's laughing at him. Yeah. So she then kind of flies up at him, but he chops her head clean off with the shovel. So why didn't you just grab that to begin with? But that doesn't stop her body from continuing to go after him. So he is just chopping the shit out of her with a shovel. And this is where, he's completely soaked in blood. Yep. Like he took a bath in a pool of blood. He makes his way back to the cabin, though. I guess she's dead now.
Completely clean.
And I guess. And hopefully in pieces, because, at this point, Shelly hasn't come back yet, so maybe that's the ticket. But oh no, as soon as he gets back in the door, the fucking cellar door's open and Cheryl's out of there. So door swings open and Ash goes inside. It's probably Cheryl though, but we don't see her right away, and then she pops up in the window and he shoots her. But that doesn't keep her down at all. So he runs back into the main room and tries to get the door shut, kind of smashing her hand in the door in the process. He then realizes he has no more bullets. Fuck. And needs to go into the goddamn cellar to get them. Which is a terrible idea.
He's got to get more shells. It's a single-shot shotgun.
Right. Use the end. Beat her with the end of it. Whatever. He heads down into the cellar. And then he looks up to that pole that was like clearly dripping and flooding before, and now there's blood everywhere, and it's blood dripping out of it. And we hear the "We're Gonna Get You" song again that Linda was singing. But he finally finds some bullets and tries to get back out of the cellar. Clocks are now chiming all over the place, and the camera work in these scenes too are like really trippy and weird, and they kind of go up and down and back and forth, and it's just weird. The shutters then start banging on all the windows, and we see kind of a POV above Ash's head, as he kind of starts walking through the house. He then goes to a mirror and pushes on it, and it's liquid, but also burns him because he screams.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the point of this like little section here was, but just as soon as that happens, he shoots at the window thinking he saw something, but clearly right now he's just like losing his fucking mind. So he reaches into his pocket, pulls out the necklace he gave Linda, and then he has zombie arms, or at least it looks like he does.
I think it just looks like he does.
Right. Like he's turning two, finally. Then Cheryl breaks through the door again, tries to strangle him.
Yeah, that actually made
just
me
keeps-
jump because you just like, it's like dead silent and then just arms through the door.
Yeah.
That was like the one part in the movie where I was like, okay, it got me to jump a little bit. Good on you, Evil
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah. Well, you're also just not expecting it.
Yeah.
But I think he finally shoots her at this moment because he shoots through the door. And you don't hear anything. But then, oh no, Scott is also turned into a demon.
Scotty.
So, yep. Now Ash has to try to fight him off. And he eventually, like, bulges his eyes in.
Yeah, he does the...
Yeah. So then Ash, as he's fighting with Scotty, he sees the Book of the Dead, and it's by the fire. But before he can try to burn it, Cheryl's now back in the house because she just can't die,
Yeah.
I think, at this point. Scott's also not dead yet, and he's just pulling at him, and Cheryl is getting something to beat him with, which she does, and beats him. He kind of flops the necklace over, though, and gets the book to pull towards him because it works-ish. He tosses it in the fire. Finally, everyone dies, / starts melting into giant piles of goop.
After like 3 minutes of having to just watch them deteriorate. It takes forever for any of them to die. It's just kind of like you're watching them. It's like, okay, they're disintegrating, and you think it's about to be over, and it's like, nope, there's some other thing that they got to do before they're completely dead.
Right.
Like the special,
and the moaning
yeah.
and
the special effects are cool, but it's just like, come on, man, I got like shit to do. Just like get it over with.
They're dead.
Yeah.
I get it.
Apparently, the idea was that what they were going to do is just going to have them like deflate. But then the guy who was in charge of like special effects like eventually convinced Raimi to do stop motion for like the disintegrating of the skin and everything like that. So
Yeah.
which I think it was good, but like I said, I think they could have sped up the process a little bit.
Yeah. Again, you can clearly tell it's stop motion. It also looks like there's like pudding coming out of them.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like blood at this point. It's like real chunky and like you said, oh shit, huge hands then pop out of Scott and Cheryl, and they just melt even more with all sorts of nasty stuff coming out of them. Not sure what the point of the hands were, but just more stuff to, again, like you said, disintegrate. Ash is just completely drenched in nasty blood and guts. And it's finally daylight outside now, though. And he still has the necklace. And we can see the sun kind of rising over the trees. And Ash stumbles out of the cabin. We see the camera flying towards the cabin again, and the doors being slammed open. And then we come up really fast on Ash's bloody face. Cut to black.
And that's the movie. It was fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I enjoyed it to an extent.
Did you?
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, Sam Raimi made this movie around the time when he was my age. So it's like, if you gave me $350,000 and a bunch of special effects makeup and a couple of my buddies and told me to go make a movie, could I make something better than this? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. But, I mean, if anybody out there wants to start throwing some sponsor money that way so I can make a movie, I'm not opposed to it. But
Go
yeah.
for it.
But I don't know. So in terms of, I kind of talked about most of the, kind of fun facts and stuff as we talked about everything. Of course, movie had a budget of $350,000. It had a very loose script. Most of it was just like, I think one of the producers on it was basically saying that the script was basically just written on a bunch of napkins. Like, it was a very loose script, and it shows in the movie just because of how poor the dialogue and the writing can be sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's for a couple of guys in their 20s and, just hiring a couple actresses and just going out into the woods and shooting a movie. It's all right. It's all right.
It is what it is. This is what we get.
Mm-hmm. Of course, Raimi, like I said, dropped out of college to make this movie. Yeah, I don't know if I would feel comfortable. I mean, then again, he did go on to direct a bunch of other movies and Spider-Man after this, so I guess that's my sign to drop out of film school and go make a movie.
No, don't. Keep going. Keep going.
All right. Anyway, do you have any more specials?
Yeah, I have a ton.
Sure, go for it.
Because, like I said, I love this franchise. Yep. I think it's fun. I think, again, they get into way more comedy as they go on. But I still think this one in particular is goofy fun.
Yeah.
This first couple that I have a source from is from a podcast that I love, and we'll shout them out now, The Horror Virgin. They're amazing. They covered Evil Dead 2. That's why I said don't bother with Evil Dead 2, because of what I'm about to tell you right here. Okay. It's basically it's not even a sequel. They recap in the first 30 minutes almost the first Evil Dead. So you could either watch Evil Dead 2 and be fine. You never had to see Evil Dead 1. Or you could watch Evil Dead 1 and be fine and not have to see Evil Dead 2.
Okay.
So either way, there's small differences in the movie. But Eli Roth took a lot of inspiration for his movie Cabin in the Woods from this franchise. Specifically Evil Dead 2, but some of Evil Dead 1. The cabin layout is almost identical in both the Cabin in the Woods and the cabin they use for Evil Dead. The creepy stuff in the cellar is almost identical as well. The fact that characters can't escape from the cabin even when they try, because that movie has a crazy-ass ending too, that nobody can get out. They're all nods to the Evil Dead franchise. The Raimi brothers made this movie using what I referred to going through the scene by scene as the Shaky Cam. They invented this using a piece of kind of flexible worked plywood, attached the camera to the center of it, strapped it to the sides, strapped sides down and in front of it, and when you run with it and then speed up the film, you get that effect of the Shaky Cam. It's interesting because it's still used today, and
well, shaky cam cool. is kind of just a loose term that's used whenever it's like handheld and there's a lot going on.
Okay.
It's kind of, so if it's like you're think of like the Jason Bourne movies, like most of that movie is just shaky cam. It's basically just like a handheld style, kind of just, there's a lot going on to kind of help increase the tension in the scene, so.
Well, fair enough. I thought the way they constructed it was cool, putting it on that plywood. So I would have liked to see, there's some behind the scenes photos online you can see of them putting it together. So that's pretty cool. Almost every Evil Dead sequel had to use slightly different things within the movie. So again, calling the Book of the Dead the Necronomicon, it's referred to in Evil Dead 2 as the Necronomicon, not the Book of the Dead. In order to have the rights for the original franchise to carry over after 3 movies, Raimi had to shop around to studios. So some studios wouldn't let him use XYZ because of the other studio not releasing it or whatever the case may be. So he kind of had to go through the films and change things here and there. And he was no longer the director of the movies after the first 3. So after Army of Darkness, he didn't direct any of the other ones because there is a reboot of the same name. But Ash is not the protagonist. The protagonist is actually a woman, and her name's Mia. And the reboot's really good, very graphic, very good horror. And there's supposed to be another one filming next year with Mia again, but supposedly they're going to pull Ash into it somehow, Bruce Campbell. So that'd be interesting. The studio from the first Evil Dead also didn't want to continue to making anymore. So rights had to be transferred, sold, blah, blah, blah. Raimi and Campbell are producers on the reboot, though, with Mia, like I mentioned. So they probably had lots of creative input as well.
Sure.
Like I kind of mentioned at the top of the episode, there is a TV series called Ash vs. Evil Dead, which airs on Starz. It's also has a huge cult following due to the films, and Bruce Campbell's in it as well, but he's an older Bruce Campbell, obviously. And it's still directed by Sam Raimi and produced by Campbell. So it's really good. I totally recommend checking it out. By the time Evil Dead was released, a couple of Stephen King novels had already been adapted to film. So Carrie and The Shining, I think. But even before Evil Dead had been released, King saw it like an early screening.
Yeah, I know that he was a big fan of it.
Huge fan. He endorsed it, so I'm sure that had a lot to do with kind of catapulting the franchise higher. Yeah. Raimi has a couple cameos in the film. He's one of the guys on the side of the road waving as they drive by to get to the cabin.
Oh, yeah.
But he's also I think he did some sort of technical background to like lighting or something in this film.
Yeah,
but,
so
like you
lighting,
said,
they didn't really have like a dedicated person to do lighting for most of the film.
Right.
The idea was that I think the Raimi was going to do most of it, but with everything going on and him having to worry about directing, there was somebody else who was working on set that ended up doing it.
Right. And again, like you said, it went way too long, so they kept running out of people to work on the movie.
Yeah. A lot of it was, if not shot in the cabin, was even shot in like Raimi's own home or backyard or just wherever they could, shoot to finish the movie.
Right. So the scene where Linda and Ash are fighting outside after he's cutting her up, that is in his backyard. Among a lot of things to be used as special effects in this movie, the corpses when they're melting at the end, so Cheryl and Scotty, the special effects guy used a lot of random things like melted marshmallows, oatmeal, Madagascar cockroaches, and snakes that they found outside. So
nice.
That's creepy.
Way to get creative. I love it.
Yeah. I mentioned the Deadite thing. That's just something to note too. It's just in this franchise in particular. And then finally, this cabin that they shot at actually has a horror story behind it, and that's why Raimi chose it to shoot with. So apparently I don't know how, it doesn't date how far back, during a thunderstorm, a little girl living in the cabin with her family woke up scared by the lightning. She ran into her mother's room and pulled back the covers to climb into bed with her, but her mom was dead in her sleep. She died in her sleep. But the little girl was so freaked out, she ran to her grandmother's room, and somehow that same evening, the grandmother also died. So she is now in a house with two dead people, and her father was out doing something. The little farmhouse that was kind of down the road from the cabin started towards the morning hearing the little girl screaming and yelling. I'm not sure why she didn't leave the cabin, but it is what it is. She didn't. So they wandered over and finally found her kind of, shocked and scared. But during filming, Raimi was noted to say as they were shooting, this guy kind of wandered down onto the set, maybe from the farmhouse. And he said they eventually ended up taking in that little girl. But they were now looking for the old woman, saying that, there was a thunderstorm the night before. He was looking for the woman, the little girl, all this happened with her because she had never returned from the cabin. So she was dead. By the time they got to the cabin to get the little girl, she had popped up and started wandering around, I guess.
Wait, this was the grandmother?
And they never found
this
her.
Was the grandmother?
The grandmother, yeah. So the little girl says the grandma was also dead. So that's what initially scared her into like hiding or whatever she did. By the time the person came from the little farmhouse down the road to get the little girl, the grandmother was gone and they never found her. But they knew that there was at least 4 people living in that house, in that cabin. So
Jesus.
Who knows? But it happened close to when they started shooting, but I can't find a specific date. So creepy.
Yeah.
And weird.
Yeah, creepy.
And that's all I got.
Well, what a note to end on. All right.
Indeed.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for either listening or watching this episode of the Cult Cinema Podcast. I believe that our plan for the month of Spooktober is to watch 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, if I'm not mistaken. And those are the next 2 episodes to come out.
Yep, so we're just going to do those back-to-back for October.
Awesome.
So we won't have an episode at the end of this month. You have school stuff, if I'm not mistaken. So we need to skip a week.
I don't think so. So I know that... What was the one that just went up? It was Dazed and Confused just went up, so Hackers should be going up the Friday after we do this one.
Oh, you're right. Then this one.
Then this one. Then we'll have... Yeah. So
Okay.
we're a few weeks behind from when you're actually watching or listening to this, but that's just so that way we can better keep on track. So
For
yeah.
sure.
So
Gage is very busy.
I've always got
demand.
shit to do.
You do.
Yeah, but thank you again, everybody, for listening or watching. Make sure to keep up with the show on Instagram to know, when we release episodes. That's the best way to do it. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave us a review. We love to know how, people are listening. We want to know what people think of the show, basically. And if you're, watching on YouTube, make sure to leave a comment as well. Like, subscribe, the stuff. But yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty much it.
All the things.
All the things, subscribe and like all the things.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it. All right. See you in the next one, everybody.
Thank you.